In the final minute, Bennett for the pocket, launches it to the end zone, touchdown, A.D. Mitchell.
Chase McGrath for the win for the Volunteers. From 40, on the way, a knuckleball. He got it!
A little bit different this week. We're going on a Friday night. How is everybody doing? I am Colin Bashnigel, your host. You can find me on TikTok, Bash's CFB show on TikTok, getting this little hair cut tomorrow, so that should be fun. And before the games, I'm not missing any games. You can find me here on Twitter or X at Bash_CFB, Bash CFB on Twitch. Make sure to comment, like, and subscribe, because opinion plus discussion equals community. So specifically, comment down below what you think of all my predictions that I'm going to have for this game. Now, we're going to have a little bit different of a structure because I've had a hectic week. We're going to get back on track next week. I promise you that. Ohio State, their first game at number 1, they're going to be playing against the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. Now, Rutgers is a team that is 6-2 right now, very quietly under the radar, sitting at 6-2. Their most impressive win, probably Virginia Tech. I can't think of anything more impressive than that. Losing to Wisconsin and Michigan, neither one really all that close. Now, Rutgers is going to bring a lot on the defensive side of the ball to test this Ohio State offense, which honestly needs all the tests they can get. But I do not see a path where Rutgers is able to move the football on the Ohio State Buckeyes, and I really do think that Ohio State should have their way on defense quite a bit. Kyle Munnin guy for you Ohio State fans is a player to watch for on Rutgers' side, but Gavin Wimsatt throwing for just a tick over 50%. Not very good. This passing attack is very, very weak. I like Ohio State to win. I like Ohio State to cover, but I definitely think that this is going to be a great test for their offense and a great gauge to see where their offense is. Is this going to be upset watch? Well, Kansas State has been playing great ever since that loss against Oklahoma State, where pretty much Ollie Gordon hit the scene, and Ollie Gordon has not left the scene since that game. But ever since that game, Kansas State has been awesome. The last 2 games, they've won by combined scores of 82-3. How relevant is that going to be with this Texas game? I'm not sure how relevant it'll be, but one thing I do know for sure is this Texas team has flirted with some disaster this year, and this Texas team is also without Quinn Ewers. They're going to be playing backup quarterback Malik Murphy. Malik Murphy is going to have a significant upgrade from week 1 as a starter to week 2 as a starter if they want to win. Overall, I'm going to take Kansas State to pull off the massive upset. This is going to be a great game. I suggest everybody watches it at noon Eastern. As we move on to 3:30 Eastern, is Missouri good enough to beat Georgia? That's going to be the big question we're going to talk about now. Georgia, of course, is going to be without Brock Bowers. Ladd McConkey stepped up big time last week in their big-time win against Florida, a rival right there. But this Missouri team has a pretty experienced defense that has let me down this year, but an experienced defense nonetheless. On offense, they've been able to find a way to run the ball with Schrader as the main tailback, but also Brady Cook has been fantastic. He's been able to find guys like Theo Weiss, and most importantly, the best wide receiver in the SEC by the name of Luther Burden. Luther Burden is an absolute game breaker, and if he can break this game open, Missouri is going to be right in it. I think Georgia does a decent job, though, of containing Luther Burden, and I think, though Luther Burden might be able to get some plays on this Georgia defense, I'm going with Georgia. I'm going with the capabilities that this defense and this talent has to win this football game outright at home, especially to knock Missouri out of any sort of long shot playoff picture right there. Final Bedlam game in the Big 12. We have Oklahoma State. I previously mentioned when talking about Kansas State and what he did against the Wildcats, and then also all these other teams like Kansas, most notably going for over, I think, 280 all-purpose yards against Kansas. Ollie Gordon and Oklahoma State. My problem with Oklahoma State is this Oklahoma defense, though they have struggled the last couple of weeks, they've been really, really good this year. And I don't think you can be super duper one-dimensional the way that Oklahoma State is to be able to win a ball game against Oklahoma. It's at home. That environment's going to be rocking. I got to guess that this game is going to be down to the wire and super close. And Dillon Gabriel is going to have to show up against that Oklahoma State defense that Not really at any point this year were they playing super poorly, but their low point as a team where they were able to kind of learn and rebound clearly was that South Alabama loss 33-7. This is a completely different team. And if you remember watching that game where I took South Alabama money line, this is a completely different Oklahoma State team that shocked everybody, gotten up to 6-2, gotten into the top 25. But I do think Oklahoma gets back. I think they win this ball game. This is a trendy upset, but I'm going with Oklahoma in this ball game. Penn State, will they be able to survive out in College Park? Now, this defense, specifically the secondary for Maryland, has been a massive liability. They could have allowed a lot more to Ohio State if Kyle McCord didn't play probably his worst game as the starting quarterback as for the Ohio State Buckeyes. You're talking about inaccurate passes, underthrown balls like crazy, and still completing the passes and looking good on a stat sheet. That's how bad the Maryland secondary was. Now, will Nick Singleton or Katron Allen be able to get loose? I don't really think so. Like, maybe they'll be able to pop off one big run, specifically Nick Singleton. But this game really is going to be on Drew Waller. And if Penn State is going to win this game, Drew Waller needs to have a big day. Now, what has happened the last couple of weeks is mobility at the quarterback position with Luke Altmaier and Brendan Sullivan for Northwestern is what has absolutely killed this Maryland defense. But their offense has been able to put up points, and that's what could make them dangerous. Maryland, and they're also looking to get right. I think Penn State survives. I think they win this game in College Park, Maryland, but this one's going to be really tough and definitely one to watch for in the middle of the day. Actually, that might be a noon game if I remember correctly. I can't recall. I thought that was Big Noon Kick. No, Big Noon Kick is Kansas State and Texas. That is 3:30 on Fox. We got a shootout coming between USC and Washington, and this is going to be super fun. This Washington defense is definitely not very good. They're a little bit overrated. A lot of people are propping them up way too much. They are very, very poor. And on the other side, you got USC with Caleb Williams, but a defense that is disruptive and poor. So you're talking about a USC team that gets a lot of sacks, will force a couple of turnovers in a lot of games, but this is a Washington team that doesn't really turn over the ball. But of course, against USC, a team that's opportunistic, Washington does have a lot of plays where they potentially allow turnovers. And that's what I'm going to be watching for here in this ball game is Washington potentially, turning the ball over once or twice, being a little bit of a, I don't know, kind of just a different version of what we come to expect of this Washington offense, is play it safe type of offense, but throwing the ball around the yard still. I got USC winning this game. I got USC winning in the Coliseum in an absolute shootout. I don't even know what the over-under is, but the over probably hits. SEC West Championship, yes, we have LSU playing against Alabama. Now, to set the stage here, LSU has one loss in conference. Alabama has none. LSU's one loss in conference is Ole Miss, who also has one loss in conference, but that's to Alabama, and Ole Miss has to go on the road to Georgia. So you got to think with Texas A&M still on the docket and Georgia on the road still up for the Ole Miss Rebels. I think that, and by the way, rankings on the bottom line ticker, that's based on the CFP poll now. I think that this Ole Miss team is most likely going to lose, and the winner of this game controls their own destiny for the SEC West. And I think that LSU is a team to look for because they've been on fire on offense, and their defense has been playing better. Now, they haven't faced the competition that you're going to get with the deep balls threat that Jalen Milroe gives you. They are an explosive play offense. Alabama is super duper predicated. Basically the polar opposite of Penn State. Penn State moves the ball really well, but they cannot get that big play, that big break. Well, Alabama, they get nothing but that big play, big break. They've been able to run the ball better recently, but you take a look at what Alabama has been going up against. I don't know if any of them have a front seven as talented as LSU. It's that secondary that's been the liability. So what do you need, Alabama fans? You need Isaiah Bond, Jermaine Burton to have big days. And you need knee block over the middle to be an absolute mismatch. Overall, though, the explosiveness is with what LSU's been able to find with the run game and that throw game with Malik Neighbors, one of the best receivers in America, Brian Thomas, also one of the best receivers in America, being explosive. I'm going to take the LSU Tigers to beat Alabama at Alabama. We are going to take that upset here, and that leads us to walk that line. A little bit shorter of a show, I know, but here we go, and I'm going to take away that ticker. I wanted to see how it looked first. First slide here. Wisconsin, -9.5. They're going to be playing against an Indiana team that's struggling. I think they sold out to beat Penn State, and though it concerns me, Wisconsin coming off of the Ohio State loss, I'm going to take Wisconsin to bounce back in a big way. Texas A&M, Ole Miss, over 54 points. I think both defenses leave a lot to be desired, specifically the secondary of Texas A&M going up against the passing attack with Jackson Dart. That's been very lethal in games this year. Kansas State +4. Please, Kansas State, if you lose this game, please keep it close. I like Kansas State a lot. I like them to win outright with how they've been playing the last 3 weeks of the year so far. I think they're really, really good. FAU, UAB, I mean, come on. Trent Dilfer's team has not been able to play any defense, and this is up against Tom Herman. Though we have a narrative against Tom Herman, he's got some good offenses for sure. I think the over 59 does definitely hit. Illinois +1.5. They're playing up against Minnesota this week. I think that they're the better team, and I think Illinois is also getting hot at the right time, so take Illinois +1.5. Georgia State -5.5 here. All right. You take a look, or plus, I had a typo, +5.5. You take a look at them going up against the James Madison team that struggled against Old Dominion. They're 5.5-point underdogs, so I'm going to have to edit that +5.5. 5.5-point underdogs, that's definitely a favorable number because this Georgia State offense has been fantastic. It's really, trying to bounce back a little bit from a couple of weeks ago when they lost to Georgia Southern. This is a Georgia State team that's still in the thick of things for the SBC championship, and I think they're going to have to win this game to stay in that race. I think the pressure is going to be on. Even if they lose, I think they lose close. Kansas +2.5. I think they win outright at Iowa State. Iowa State's been playing a whole lot better. Brecht has looked really good at quarterback, but this Kansas team, it's a letdown spot on the road at Iowa State, but they're a really good team, and I don't think we should sleep on them just because of the fact that they lost to Oklahoma State a couple weeks ago. Utah State -2.5. San Diego State has been an absolute disaster. That defense is not exactly the same, and I don't think that offense is good at all. Utah State, as long as they contain San Diego State's offense enough, they should have no problem winning this game. Rice +12. I don't necessarily think they're going to win against SMU, but I do think they keep it within 10 points. JT Daniels in this Rice offense has been pretty good this year. They were very tight with Tulane last week. I wouldn't be surprised if Rice won outright, but I'm going to go with Rice +12. And finally, Arizona +2.5. Give yourself a little bit of extra cushion, but honestly, Arizona money lines to play. They are a team that should really be 7-1 right now, but they're sitting at 5-3. And one of those 3 losses was against a USC team in double overtime that they easily should have won. Both of their losses against Mississippi State and USC, both they should have won. If it weren't for their mistakes, they would have won in regulation. Instead, they went on to win or lose both in overtime. They're starting to see their potential after beating Washington State 44-6, handing them their worst loss of the season, and then also beating Oregon State a week ago in a hard-fought matchup in the desert. Take Arizona money line, but +2.5 if you want that extra comfort. All right, thank you guys for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Make sure you guys like and subscribe with this big upset weekend ahead. I really appreciate you guys. Have a good one.